Jai Hind everyone, myself Sandeep Yadav, Assistant Professor CSC Department. Today I am going to deliver a lecture on project financing, which is a part of unit number 4 in the subject Project Management and Entrepreneurship, which is being taught in either 8th semester or 7th semester to various students of the BTech. Depending on the semester it is taught, the code is KHU 802 or KHU 702. So let us start with the topic. Now these are the content that I am going to discuss in today's lecture: financial feasibility, financial analysis, project cost estimations, capital requirements, source of funds and capital fund budgeting, risks and uncertainty in project evaluation. So everyone is aware about project. Well, project is a planned activity that is carried out for a specific purpose. So one of the foremost area in project is project financing. The first term that we study in project financing is financial feasibility. Well, most of us are aware with the word feasibility, but here we have to be more concerned with financial feasibility. Well, the term is the process of identifying the overall investment outlay, determining expected rate of returns and evaluating project financially. That is whether the project is financially viable or not, how it influences the firm growth in long term, it affects the firms into consideration, it involves a huge amount of funds. Generally, a wrong decision regarding the investment may prove fatal for any organization as it invests a huge amount of sum. So financial feasibility is an important term that is to be taken care of during the project financing. A careful analysis of cash outflows, what goes out is outflow and what comes in is inflows, is essential before applying any capital budgeting techniques. Well, this technique we will be studying later on, but in a nutshell we can say that it is the process of identifying, evaluating and selecting a project that requires a huge amount of funds and generate long term benefit in the future. That is, we have to be more concerned with the long term planning. That is very critical in any industry, that we need to think about long term planning as well as short term planning as well as mid term planning. We need to have the vision of the management for long term, short term as well as mid level. Generally, long term vision is decided by the higher level management. Now, the various steps in financial analysis. So, when we do the financial analysis, there are certain steps that need to be followed, which are: first is estimation of the cost of project. That is, what will be the cost of the project, what are the various attributes that determine the cost of the project, or what are the various components related to the cost of the project that need to be taken care of. Thereafter, we do the estimation of project cash flow. That is, what is the cash flow, how much is the inflow, how much is the outflow, that need to be taken care in step number 2. Now third is estimation of expected rate of returns. What will be the rate of return, how much will we be gaining, then that will be decided in step number 3. And next is application of decision rule. The decision rule need to be applied for taking various decisions at a particular moment of time in analysis. For that, we need to apply the decision rule precisely, so that any ambiguity should not be there and wrong decision should not be considered at all. Now let us discuss some of the terminology used here. Now the first is the estimation of the cost of project. There are two main components of the cost of the project. First is fixed investment, second is working capital. All of them have been underlined here. That is, the fixed investment is there and working capital is there. The cost of the project include all the cost incurred before commissioning of the commercial production, that is manufacturing, or operations, that is in case of service projects. So whole of the cost is determining by summing up all the capital that we have invested before the commissioning of the project. Now, how to find out the working capital of an organization? So, what is the working capital? It is the working capital equal to current assets minus liabilities. Assets are the earning are the assets, and liabilities are the borrowings, the loans, borrowing or the loans are the liabilities. So, suppose I have a salary of 1 lakh and 40,000 I have to pay for the EMI every month. Then what shall be my asset is 1k, right? 1 lakh per month current asset, right? And I have to pay EMI of 40,000. Then in the current month my working capital is 60,000. This is a simple example to let you understand what is meaning by working capital. Otherwise the term is used in reference to the industry, not for individual. So working capital is decided by considering the current asset minus current liabilities. Now this working capital is a term that is used for short term financial position of organization, and it is very important. Now working capital keeps on changing with the passage of times, and it is very important to run the business properly, otherwise we may not be able to do much. Now second step is estimation of project cash flows. This steps involves all the project cash flows during the life cycle of the project. It includes the capital investment, initial capital investment, cash flows generated during the duration, and at the termination of a project. Now cash flow, what is cash flow? Cash flow is net amount of cash being transferred into and out of business in terms of income and expenditure. So what should be the ideal cash flow? Whether it should be positive or it should be negative. What should we think? Well, in ideal case is a positive cash flow is desired, because the net amount of money should be possessed by the company. It should not have more liability. It must have positive cash flow. So last line that is very important is a positive cash flow is desired, right? Because with the only positive cash flow we will be able to carry out the financing of the project. Now estimation of expected rate of returns. For financing a project there are many sources of funds. After careful evaluation we design the optimal capital structure for the firm. The expected rate of returns from the project include two important concepts. First is risk free component, that is generally weighted average cost of capital and it has low return. And second is risk component, risk premium due to investment, that is high return. So one has low return, another is high return. One has risk free, another is having high risk. So return equal to, how to compute the return? Now return is computed as VF minus VI upon VI, that is VF is the final value, VI is the initial value, and rate of return is net gain or loss of an investment over a period of time. So return, how to compute the return is VF minus VI upon VI, where VI is the initial value and F is the final value. So what is desired is, what should be the desire of any firm or entrepreneur? Whether the rate of return should be negative or it should be positive. Well, in ideal case it should be positive. For the organization to run successfully, it should have net gain. right? Or many of the firms that are loss making may have loss also, they will be having the negative rate of return. Now, next topic that we are going to discuss is application of decision rule. The last stage of financial analysis is to apply various tools for checking the financial feasibility of the project. So, we apply capital budgeting are applied to ascertain profitability and expected return from the project. So, these are applied to find out the profitability that we will be getting from a particular project. Now, component of cost of project and its estimation. How to compute the cost of project and estimate it? Well, the project include all the expenses incurred before the commercialization of the project. It include the capital investment and all the recurring expenses. What are recurring expenses is that which reoccur, which repeat itself, like salary that we give to the employees, like interest that we pay on the loan, incurred before the completion of the project or before the project is being handed over for the operations. So, this is complete list of the project cost of the project. Now, the various component of the cost of project as per the guidelines for various financing and appraising authorities are as follows. Number 1, land site development. Now, in order to have the project, first requirement is land. We need land. So, first expenses related to land, that is land and site development. It includes all the expenses incurred on the acquisition of land and making it suitable for the implementation of the project. Now, the various components, in fact we can say subcomponents, small parts are purchase price of land. What is the purchase price of land? On what rate we are purchasing the land? First component. Second, the legal and the registration charges. What are the registration charges that we are paying for the land? Third component is the labeling of land. See, the land initially that we procure may not be in perfect position. We need to label it, or we need to label it. For that, we have to incur cost. Then we have to lay the internal and approach roads. When we develop a big site, then we need to lay out the drains, we need to lay out the roads. So, there must be provision for that. Thereafter, we need a boundary or the fencing of the land, so that it clearly demarcates our boundary and safeguards our land from other thing. Thereafter, next is gate and the site of. Then after the demarcations, we must have a gate. There must be some entry and exit point which are controlled through gates, and we must have the site office, so that if any person visits, he can use the site office for that purpose, from where he can get the information. Then we need tube well and electrification for project implementation. Tube well is very important because if we require water, water is required everywhere. For that, we need tube wells to procure, to have the water available at the site for various purpose, for construction purpose, for drinking purpose. We need tube wells. We need to bore down the tube wells and have the water. How much capacity is required is decided based on the project size. And we also need electrical wiring to provide electricity throughout the sites. For that, electrification is required. For that, we need to concern the concerned power corporation office situated in that particular city, and more expenses of similar type can be there. Next is the construction cost. Well, this include all the expenses that incurs on the construction of factory and non-factory building of all natures, including RCC and PCC. Now, what are the factory buildings? For example, a production shed, a boiler, a transformer room, a generator room, workshop and laboratory. These are the factory buildings. These are the essential components of the factory building where the production need to be carried out. Now, there are certain buildings within the sites which are non-factory buildings which are used for additional functionalities. Like, so these are used for providing additional functionalities. Like warehouse, when warehouse is there, then stores are there, security house is required for security persons, worker restroom is required for the worker to take rest, we require restroom. Then there must be a provision of parking should be there for all the employees whosoever desire the parking, and then time office or excise room should be there. There must be an administrative block. For administrative control, we need an administrative block, essential quarters for the workers who are currently residing on sites. Then those require quarters. There must be provisions for quarter for them. A canteen and a mess should be there to cater to their food requirements. There must be provision of canteen there. So, these are the two types of buildings at the premise. One is factory buildings, other is non-factory buildings. I hope it is clear to all of the viewers. Next is plant and the machinery. This is the biggest cost in a manufacturing project. It comprises overall cost of imported and indigenous machinery, including its erection and foundation costs. The following costs are included under this head. Now, the machinery may be imported from outside. Generally, imported things are expensive, and the indigenous machinery may be also. Thereafter, then we need to erect it. Then the foundation of that particular machinery will be laid out in case of mechanical related projects or civil related projects. The following costs are included under this head: basic cost of equipment, excise duty, custom duty is required whenever we are bringing it from outside. Then sale tax. Now, transshipment cost is required. It has to incur because we are bringing it from the vendor to our sites. So, transshipment cost will also be a component. Then, when we are bringing it from outside to our site, from customers, from vendor to our site, it must be insured during the transportation, because any casualty may happen during transportation. Next is erection and foundation cost. Well, this is in the expense that occurs whenever we need to fix our new machines. We need to have its proper foundation, we need to erect it, and machine has to be kept over that foundation. So, the costs will be incurred in that particular step. Then the piping costs will be required. Next is technical know-how. Next component is whether generated or transferred. Any technology has its own cost. This technical know-how includes basic cost of technology development or purchase, where we are purchasing some technology from outside, then we have to provide the amount for that. Then the training cost for the employees. Thus, the employees of any organization need to be trained in order to use a new machinery. The employees need to be trained. For that, the training cost has to be there, and the training must be provided by good trainers. And the royalty paid, if applicable, then the royalty has to be paid. Next is utilities. Now, utilities are the common facility used for various plants of the same organizations. This seems similar to plant and machinery cost, but the difference lies in that utility are used for various plants, whereas plant and machinery is used for individual plants. So, utility is common for various plants: boiler, compressor, generator, underground overhead water tank and effluent treatment plants are covered here. The miscellaneous assets, miscellaneous fixed assets are the various costs which are not included in the discussion that we have done so far. They are termed miscellaneous fixed assets. Furniture, fixtures, the furniture is there, the chair is there, the table is there, for the, these are the miscellaneous item. Computer is there, mobile is there, fax is there, printer is there, laptop is there, accessories are there, paper are there, pen are there, cameras are there, vehicles are there, trucks are there, cars are there, the bus are there, and then weighbridge are there. So, these are the expenses which are the miscellaneous fixed assets which are not included in the cost mentioned before, and we need to take care of them also. Thereafter, the preliminary expenses. These include the market survey expenses, public issue expenses and interest during the implementation, during the preliminary implementation of the project, concerned project. Then the pre-operative expenses. These expenses include the normal expenses such as salary and the rent incurred by an organization prior to the commercial production. This includes the travel expenses. The person has to travel at various places, company formation expenses, commissioning expenses and trial run costs. A trial run is also required. So, these are the different expenses that are covered in pre-operative expenses. And the foremost among them is travel expenses is an essential component, and the trial run cost is also an essential expenses which must be taken care of in pre-operative expenses, and we need to have proper budgeting of all these things. Next is contingency. This is cushion fund kept for some foreseen or expenditures or some unknown or unforeseen situations that expenses is there. Thereafter, next term comes margin money for working capital. Working capital is generally financed through short term source of income. Now, the various source of income we have already discussed in the session. What are the various source of income? Next topic that is under consideration is working capital estimation. Well, what is the working capital? Is that assets minus liability is the working capital, and it is the operating capital. It should be adequate for short term plan financing. Working capital should be adequate. A higher working capital means underutilization of the funds, and a low, if we have higher working capital, it means we are not able to utilize our resources efficiently, and a lower working capital may hinder smooth operations. And if the working capital is low, then we will not be able to carry out all the operations because we have low budget available with us. So, we need to take care of those. It should not be high or should not be low. That there must be a threshold which must be there. Now, what are the various determinants? What should be the ideal working capitals? So, there are various determinants regarding that. First is raw material inventory. The inventory for the raw material is the first component. Then VIP, the work in progress inventory, the work, how much we are able to do, that comes here. Then the finished goods inventory, how much the finished product we are having in our inventory. Then the debts that we have to pay is an important component. Then cash is the last, is also an important one. Now, the project cash flows. The project cash flows differs from the financial cash flows during operations. Cash flow can be classified into three types: initial outlay, operating cash flow and terminal cash flow. Now, this is initial outlay, operating cash flow and terminal cash flow. The term EBIT is earning before interest and tax. Now, generally we are seeing that initial outlay generally outflow. It is in only applicable in 0th year, that is initially outlay is required in the beginning only. Now, the operating cash flow, it is generally inflow, that is it is applicable from the first year to the nth year. Now, towards the end of the project, the terminal cash flow will be applicable and it is in the nth year. So, these are the three types of flow that we need to take care. Now, the operating cash flow is calculated without considering interest as an expenses. The initial outlay that we have discussed is generally before the starting of the project, but when there is a capacity enhancement, there is additional outlay in the next year. One should be careful in computing working capital. It should be available 1 year before the planning in advance, so that we are able to carry out the planning component easily. I hope it is clear to every one of you who are our is listening, and we shall discuss these topics further in next series of lectures.